summer of 1978, and my middle son is being born. My wife, deceased wife, she was Navajo. She wanted to have the baby on the reservation, so she went and had the baby, our boy, at Fort Defiance. Everything was great, 7.5-pound healthy baby boy. She was healthy. I'm running around to the grocery store and everything, and grandma's there, and her sisters and stuff. And so it's a very happy occasion. In the middle of that, the Red Rock nuclear accident happens. That's in New Mexico along the Rio Puerco River. A big thunderstorm once in 100 years comes along, and the ponds that held the uranium tailings from the Yellow Cake mine flood, and the area included not only that, but the dam ponds broke, and all of this nuclear waste goes into the Rio Puerco River. If you know anything about the area from about Gallup to Holbrook, in the southern part of the Navajo Reservation, the Rio Puerco River is important because my mother-in-law herded her sheep down there every evening, to 150 head of sheep, and they wade in the water and they tank up for the next day. And then all of a sudden you can't water your sheep there. You can't take the horses down there. And they showed pictures of dead sheep and dead horses, and it was just a very sobering experience. And this is 3 or 4 years after 3 Mile Island, which was then the largest peacetime nuclear accident. Red Rock became then the largest peacetime nuclear accident, and it continued to be the largest until Chernobyl, which was 4 or 5 years after Red Rock. So that launched me into doing stuff about pollution and other things around Indian reservations. Just running into non-Indians and saying, well, you guys are poor, live in out-of-the-way places, but you got clean water and clean air and all that. And I said, no, it's not. It's not like that. That actually a lot of pollution that people have to deal with. Also at that time, they had a thing on the Mohawk Reservation because Alcoa and Ford had been dumping PCBs in the water for 25 years or so. And it got so bad, and most people on the Mohawk Reservation in Akwesasne have wells. So that's what you do. And these wells you can't use them anymore, but even more shocking, they told Mohawk mothers that they can't nurse their children. Because mother's milk is like 2/3 fat, and PCBs concentrated fat. And so babies would get real concentrations of PCBs from Mohawk mothers that were drinking well water and drank it for years as they were growing up. See? And this is just to Native people, this is just stunning to tell a mother that she can't do the most natural thing there is to do. So that launched me on my journey, and it comes from the Oro rivers in Venezuela, Colombia, one of those. And you grow that tobacco 10 years in land, and at the end of that, all you have is sand. Crabgrass won't even grow in it. It extracts all the nutrients out, and then white people would move farther west to grow, tobacco again. And then eventually, by the early 18th century, they started importing that marijuana from caves, I think in Colombia or someplace in the Caribbean, to replenish the soil and stuff. Our tobacco, Indian tobacco as we call it, grows about this high in the woods, and like other herbs, people just go out and clip it. And of course, also, if we didn't chain smoke it, we put it in a pipe, and it's more like incense. You didn't inhale it, because they looked at it, and it's extremely high in tar, so you're going to cough and wheeze if you inhale that tobacco. Now, the story there was a book written by one of my ancestors, Tomochichi, who met the people when they came, the Europeans, when they came to Savannah. And somehow it wound up with me. And I told the person we were reviewing, I said, you know, this is my great grandfather. I want you to look at it. And so it was pretty good. You know, the person that wrote it did all the documentary sources and stuff. But then in there, it's like Tomochichi was reported, according to the author, to be over 6 feet tall, and also lived to be about 95 years old. And the person said, this is not possible. People in the 18th century cannot grow to be that old, and they cannot be that big. And the descriptions of Tomochichi a year or two before he died was he had a wrinkled face and all of this. And so they then said the wrinkled face is not probably because he's old, but because he smoked a lot. So I told the person reviewing the manuscript, I said, you know, when Tomochichi was born in 1660, they didn't have Marlboros. You know, we didn't smoke bright leaf tobacco. We smoked in a pipe Indian tobacco, which grew, like I said, in the woods. And you don't, you know, chain smoke it and stuff. But they ignored that and kept it in the manuscript and all that stuff. Also, I said, you know, I'm 6'2". Grandpa was 6'2". His grandpa was 6'2". That's kind of the way the men are. And so, Tomochichi probably was 6'2", and people say he was big. So, family history, many times, particularly if you're negative, it doesn't count much when we remember our ancestors, who they were and what they were like. So what we see in terms of environmental things happening is there's a rolling, what I try to teach people is a rolling environmental chaos from east to west. Soil exhaustion is the first manifestation of it. Most of you probably know about the Dust Bowl and the absence of the buffalo, but often you see the ecological explanation of the Dust Bowl is simply that farmers are doing wheat and it stops raining and then that causes the Dust Bowl. But I've talked to Lakota people and they point out that the buffalo live on the plains, and the buffalo have a symbiotic relationship with buffalo grass. And buffalo grass, the roots go down 5 or 6 inches. But it's called buffalo grass because the buffalo grass needs these 3,000-pound animals on high heels that turn the hard pan of the prairie. And that enables the buffalo grass to take root. So when you don't have buffalo, you don't have buffalo grass. And when you get rid of the buffalo and you put wheat in, And the only thing is shallow-rooted plants, and they can't stop the wind erosion. So I was part, 20 years or so ago, of a group of people that wanted to launch the Buffalo Commons Act in Congress. And that was an educational experience. What Native people in South Dakota and North Dakota said that, people are 55 and they're wheat farmers and their kids are in Chicago or Denver and they don't want to come back. So these wheat farms are going empty. And so what Native people proposed was that the government buy them and you create these big common lands and you run buffalo over them, and the buffalo grass will come back. They even did a study that you could produce as many calories per acre running buffalo as you could with wheat. Plus, you don't have to irrigate for buffalo. You don't spoil the aquifer by pumping water out to water the wheat. And the Lakota people said, and what we'll do is we'll have slaughterhouses and harvest the buffalo, and non-Indians can work there too. It'll create jobs, and it'll be good for everybody. It's environmentally good, et cetera, et cetera. And that ran into incredible opposition, and it didn't pass. It's interesting because the vegetarians didn't like it. And they criticized us for proposing that. How dare you propose to kill those cute buffalo? Some of them even proposed that what you do is you create the buffalo commons, and then you move the Indians out of there, and then people just come through on helicopters and watch the beautiful buffalo commons. That's not very kind, because for thousands of years we've lived with buffalo. And when we hunted buffalo, we harvested the squareheads, which are genetic throwbacks. And if you let the squareheads mate, and every 10 or 15 years there's a really bad winter, and if those squareheads are allowed to survive and they're children, then half the herd is going to die in that bad winter. But if you manage the herd, keep it strong, then that bad winter, only about 10% will die in that bad winter. And so the Dakota people are arguing the buffalo need us and we need them. But, it never got anywhere in terms of changing things around. And it's too bad, I think, because that would really help the environment of the Great Plains. What we need here in all of this, see, is some appreciation for Native viewpoints and Native land management, or whatever you want to call it, ways of doing things and appreciations for things, and that ethics is different. See, that I understand the vegans and the vegetarians and their argument, but I also understand the Native people, and I'm biased. I side with the Native argument on this. And I also, animals to me aren't innocent beings. I've been attacked by animals and threatened, and also animals, we live, and their existence is important for us, and our existence is important for them, as I described how the herd is managed and stuff. And often there's this separation in Western civilization, that animals are less than human, and they can't think, all this. Can't learn, we just study their behavior. Same thing with plants, And so this is a different mentality here. But I have tried to kind of give you these examples where there's some real concrete things about the Native way of thinking and doing things that often get unnoticed or superseded by
ethical and philosophical kinds of things that grow out of Western civilization. One of the things that's important here, and I talked to Ron Trosper about this yesterday, but I also tell my students that this feeds into what I've been talking about, is that as a Native person, I was taught that my group and my obligations to the group comes first. That I am a member of a community, I'm a member of a clan, I have things I have to do. It's not just being a husband and a father, it's the larger group, the community, and those kinds of things. Then when that's done, I can pursue my individualism. I can paint or play music or whatever, but I have to tend to the group thing first. In Western civilization, it's the reverse. People are individuals first, and then their group obligations come after that. And part of that is that, in Christianity, when you die and go to the pearly gates, the guy is sitting there and got a list of your sins or whatever, and then you get in or you don't, see, and that's important, right? You get into heaven if you're a Christian. See, Native people don't have that kind of thing. Vine Deloria educated me, because everybody knows Vine used to be an Episcopal minister, right? But he talked to me about the persistence of the soul after death. For Christians, you're born John Smith or Jane Doe, and then when you die, you continue to be John Smith or Jane Doe for your soul, and then you go to heaven. And Native people, well, I'll just talk about where I come from. We talk about people die, and then they go back into the earth. See, and we don't go to some other planet or other place. That's why Native burials are so important to us. These are our ancestors. They need to be here, and so on. And we tell the story where I come from, that women have this power, that under the ground there are these faceless spirits. And then at conception, women draw those faceless spirits into their womb, and they give it a face. And then you got your tribe, your clan, and all of that stuff there. And that's the power of women. In fact, I ran into a tree thing where one of the white guys asked the chief, "Why do you respect women so much?" He says, "Well, women have the power to bring life into the world. Guys can't do that." This is a very simple answer to that. So, we're judged to see by how well we do in the community. Also, your individual behavior is important too, but how good a citizen you are, see. Some people talk to me about my activism and stuff. I just tell them I grew up citizenship. Things that are important to the group and the community. You have to express them. You have to talk about these things. And that's what I've done all my life. Part of the reason why I joined AIM and some other things. So basically, my thing is Native American thought and philosophy and how it works, and how, and also, and my teaching, how it is in contrast to Western civilization. So that's an important kind of aspect of where I'm going here, is that also the Native way is more about process. The end product is less important. It is important, But the way you do it, Greg talked about this way and that way, and that is what I call process. The process of doing something is extremely important. Whereas in Western civilization, it's I want to, raise more crops or create more cattle, and that's what I'm going to go for. That's my goal. It's more of a goal-oriented culture, see, than a process-oriented culture. And so that's an important aspect of that difference as well. I think too here, I'll give you some advice. One person that's right here in your backyard that you might want to invite sometimes is a philosophy professor at the University of Oregon. His name is Scott Pratt. And Pratt has authored a book. He came to me during he was writing it on native values and pragmatism. Pragmatism is the one unique, innovative thing that American philosophy created. Pragmatism is about basically, when you talk about stuff in philosophy and theorize, does it work in the real world? Can you prove it by experience? And for 100 years, pragmatism kind of burst out of the minds of Henry David Thoreau and others that were the transcendentalists, in New England. And then Scott Pratt noticed that all those guys were going fishing every summer in Maine with Maine Indians. And people knew that, but they just kind of, oh yeah, their fishing guides were Indians and they spent 3 months with them. And what the hell does that have to do with philosophy, see? And then he started delving into these guys' notes and so on, and they, over the fire at night, they were having these long discussions about the environment and how it works and so on and so forth. And this is not a trivial thing. These transcendentalists who are the pragmatists who are the authors of this, they spent 20, 25 years doing this every summer with Native people. And he wrote the book on that. And of course he came to me, he did that about 8 or 10 years ago. He came to me because my book on the Iroquois and the development of American government, and he says, I'm going to run into some problems like that saying that natives actually impact thought and intellectual traditions is going to be a problem. But he says, it's there. I found it. So I encouraged him. Sally Roche Wagner came to me 25 years ago. And she came to me and said, the early suffragists in New York, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, and so on, all were friends with women clan mothers. They lived near the Onondaga Reservation, and it's clear that they were impacted by their interactions with these Native women. She told me a story about Elizabeth Cady Stanton was visiting an Onondaga woman, and they're in the house and having a cup of coffee and talking and doing things. And then a guy rides up, gets off his horse, comes in. She goes out. She says, "Wait a minute, I gotta go show this guy my horse, and I might sell it to him." So sure enough, he rides the horse and everything, and then they make the deal, and he rides off with the horse. And she comes in with the money. She comes in, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton tells her, "What is your husband going to say when you come home and he finds out who sold the horse?" And the Onondaga woman just laughs and says, "It's my horse. I can do what I want to with it." And she was just taken back, that a woman could do that, you know, that there was this kind of universalism that women everywhere in the world don't have power, see, and that this exposure to Native women and their powers was just startling, that you can actually have some power as a woman. And so many of the early suffragettes pointed that out, and indeed, someone once said to me that you can't prove that really, that's just a story. But in Puck magazine, which is the equivalent of Time, in 1919, there's a cartoon, and this is on the eve of the 1920, the Women's Right to Vote amendment is passed. So this is seeing it coming, and it has these Iroquois clan mothers standing by the road, and it's got white women suffragettes, walking down the road with their signs saying, "Give women the right to vote." And the caption on the bottom is, they're organizing for what we already have. And that's in a white magazine. It's not Puck magazine, like I said, is the equivalent of Time magazine in 1919, and that was the attribution. So it's not just something that we dreamed up. Even white people back then recognized it, even though many of them today don't. So what I want to do here is make some comparisons of some things in the two societies that will give us some insight into some of the conflicts. I want to talk about what I call the role of human beings. These are things that everybody does, Indian, white, whatever. And then how those roles are acted out in Western civilization, and then how they are in Native societies. And the first one I want to talk about is basically what we might call existence, how existence operates. Okay. This is not exactly a big board. This is the role of human beings, Western civilization, and then Native. And then this word is existence. And then in Western civilization, human beings are the crown of creation. I don't want to go into in depth because sometimes Christians get after me, but man is created in the image of God, and that therefore human beings are the closest to God and the crown of creation. And then this pyramid is one side goes down to one-celled animals, and the other side goes down to one-celled plants. And, you go here, you've got apes and raccoons, and down the scales of alligators and reptiles. And then you got the same thing with trees and stuff, and down to algae or something. And there's kind of this pecking order in terms of this. But for Native people, that kind of hierarchy isn't there. We think in terms, and this is an easy thing, and I saw it guy yesterday anyway, he had a web of creation. He had a web there too. And what we have for Native people is a web of creation. And we're part of that web. But so are dogs, so are buffalo, so are corn, so are trees, and so on. There's no hierarchy. No one is better than the other. Everybody has certain powers. When I was a kid, I was told that dogs are not inferior. White people think the dogs are inferior, but they've got better ears and better noses than we do. And the burglar alarm, if you will, at night, and to keep other animals out of the yard. We have problems with deer in our yard, and my wife is a gardener. She plants tulips and all of that. She complains about the deer, eating them up and stuff. And so I said, it's just simple. Just have a dog out there. It's his turf. He keeps everything, the rabbits, the deer, everything, out of the yard. You don't need to have these sprays and other things. All you need is a dog. And that one of the things too, this is an aside, but you talk about the lack of domesticated animals amongst native people, and that they just hunted deer, buffalo, and they didn't make them into cows and pigs and things like that. And my response to a lot of people is, have you ever heard of dog flu? Meaning, of course, there is swine flu, there is bird flu from chickens, and so on. And I think native people knew that living too close to animals on a day-to-day basis, certain animals, you could produce disease. Smallpox, for instance, comes from cows. It jumped off of cows onto human beings about 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. And people knew this basically because in the Middle Ages, milkmaids were the first nurses. Because the milkmaids, girls that started milking cows at 7 or 8 years old, they caught cowpox. Cowpox is a weaker version of smallpox. And when the smallpox epidemic would come, they had the immunity. So they could go into places where people had smallpox and they wouldn't catch it. So the animals are our brothers and the plants are our sisters according to the way we do things, where I come from. And that's important because there are all these dualities in the world. And the challenge is not to which is dominant, but putting them together, like I talked about, putting males and females together is more productive than one dominating the other or whatever, and putting plants and animals together. Or, as Robin was talking about, putting several plants together. These are all kind of teamwork things that are important. And cooperation is important in native society rather than competition. Capitalism stresses competition. And all these individuals in the marketplace bidding for whatever, and you get the price. Whereas native people talk about bringing things together. And unity and peace produces power, and it produces prosperity, see? And that's a very different conception of economics and the environment, if you will. According to this too, physical being in Western civilization, there's a mind-body dichotomy. That there's your mind and all of this, and then according to Western civilization and Christianity, your body is kind of dirty and original sin, all of that. Well, native people don't have that. You're not born with original sin even when you're born. I was talking to Greg and we were joking about, it's just incredible to me that a kid is born, and I've had, not me, but my wife, has had 4 kids. Huh? Yeah. And so, but the idea of when those little babies come out and I'm holding them, that they're sinful, is just completely foreign to me. But that's a different way of looking at things. Identity is often ideational in Western civilization, or about race. Ideational meaning Catholic, Protestant, that kind of thing, striving to a set of ideas, whereas identity for native people is place-oriented. Where are you from? What's it like there? Are there mountains or swamps or those kinds of things? The spiritual traditions tend to be code-oriented. A Bible, with do's and don'ts, like the Ten Commandments. But in Native societies, it's about more about context. I tell students how I dramatize this. I go home tonight, somebody's banging on my door with an axe, tell the guy to go away, and he doesn't, and he comes through the door with an axe, and I have to shoot him. Okay? Technically in Christianity, I killed a person, and that's not a good thing. But in a Native society, the neighbors get around, and that guy's crazy. He came at you with an axe. The context is you did what you had to do. And there's no quote sin or whatever. And the society judges that. See, will help to make that decision. So I think it's important to understand these things. When we look at how groups operate, often in terms of psychology too, I try to talk about that there are ways of thinking and observation, which is a scientific phenomenon, and then there's theory or abstraction, and then there's experience on the other end, and then the opposite of detailed observation is intuition, the ability to solve a problem without going through the steps. In Native society, it's about balance. We all have these things. Everybody has hunches, Everybody can create theories. Also, we all have experiences, things we've seen, and we also have the ability to look at things in sharp detail. And the idea is to use all of these, and that's the safest thing to do. In Western civilization, and in science, these are the things that are valued. And I don't need to, but often in Western civilization, these aspects are gendered. Women's intuition, and by gendering it, they downgrade it. But in Native societies, we believe in balancing. It's the way we all think. We have these capabilities, and it's not an either-or proposition. It's either both or all of these. And you're safer when you come together with all of those things. See? So I think it's important that when we look at 1491 and the environment, one of the things that I try to point out about science is many people say Western civilization has the superior science. Well, I point out that's not exactly true. For 700 years, the Europeans have been fighting Russell's that creates gunpowder, navigation instruments for ships, and warfare, the physical sciences. You shoot a cannon, you have to be able to use calculus and tilt it and all of that stuff. But the life sciences are really not as good as they are in North America. That there are 256 herbal medicines here in 1492, and nobody has found any other ones. 500 years. Native people knew all of them. Also, George Washington still is the wealthiest man to be president. And anybody know how he died? He caught pneumonia, and his doctors bled. There is no evidence at all of any medicine man anywhere in North and South America bleeding people when they're sick. And our medicine worked, and we didn't do things to make it worse in terms of this. Also, let me just run through this fast, but you plant in many places an acre of corn where there was an acre of wheat, and it's 5 to 6 times more calories per acre. You shift up to potatoes, you get 12 to 15 times more calories per acre. And see, when Columbus comes to this world, Native American agricultural products shoot around the world. By 1525, corn is being grown in central China. Not in Spain. Well, it is, but in central China even. That's how it's shot around the world. The Irish potato is responsible for the growth of Irish people, and so on. So, I just want to wind up here by saying that Native people have seen the degradation of the environment, the Dust Bowl, things like that. And I think it's important to, I'll wind up with a statement from an old roadman from the Native American Church, Old Kashue. He's Oto, and we had a long conversation a long time ago. And he said this to me at the end. He says, the white man thinks he owns the earth, while the Indian knows that the earth owns him. And I thought that always kind of summed up the different points of view.
Could you say that one more time, please?
The white man thinks he owns the earth, whereas the Indian knows the earth owns him. And, you know, that's the earth mother, and, you know, all of that kind of thing. And your mother, you can't own your mother. You don't want to own your mother. You know, this is an important part. Where I come from, the rivers are her veins, the mountains are her breasts. I mean, here in Wyoming, the French come and talk to the Cheyenne, and they say, what do you call those mountains over there? And the Cheyenne say, they're our mother's breasts. And so the French usually write down Grand Tetons, which is big breasts. Okay, so thank you for listening, and I hope this helped a little bit.